And we are the coalition, loud and proud, outrage porn-free, civilly disobedient media, broadcasting live. Well, we're at Brewed Awakenings at 1395 Atwood Avenue in scenic Johnston. Clearly, even in the middle of the day, this is the epicenter of all that matters in Johnston. A lot of people having lunch. Life is back to normal. This is, I've been here many times. It's the first time I've been here live since the plague hit. But I will tell you, it's a beautiful piece of normalcy. Some people are masked, some people aren't. They're behaving. It's just a great atmosphere. All right. So we always give lip service to supporting local businesses here in Rhode Island. This isn't a business, and Dave is no stranger to the coalition. He's got a number of locations. He's employed literally thousands of Rhode Islanders. Come on down today, tomorrow. Have a nice coffee. Yes, I said a nice coffee, and relax and just feel good. But we're here to talk about getting Rhode Island back to work. You'll notice over on the coalitionradionetwork.com website, we've got a number of recent shows dedicated to, I think, really the most innovative solution I've seen nationally in bridging that gap between unemployment compensation and the salaries that were in place before the pandemic, and giving people an incentive to get back to work. We're approaching summertime in here, Rhode Island. Hospitality, tourism, fine dining are the most important private sector economies in our state. We're facing a gap between the ability of a number of businesses to open using conventional hours as applicable during the pandemic and the ability to staff their businesses properly. Just the other night, we had folks from Baccaro, we had Dave, and we're talking about institutions that, and there are institutions in our communities, institutions, organizations that expect to produce a level of service. It's difficult to open up and run a facility like this if you don't have the right people there, because the fear is ultimately that the service might become slipshod. The food might not be the quality that you've come to expect and know from a Brewed or a Baccaro over a number of years. There's a lot of challenges here at play, so we have to work to bridge that gap. So we're going to update the situation. As always, I'm going to have Dave give a brief description of what the plan is if you haven't had a chance to see our other posts. When we post this back onto Facebook, we'll provide links to those so that you can get a thorough understanding of what we're attempting to do here and what we're doing in terms of providing solutions to the state. Before I turn it over to Dave, my final thought is we've got a model here at two levels. The first model, of course, is how to get people back to work, how to share the costs between state unemployment, the reserves that are provided by the federal government, and the businesses themselves. But we're also creating here is a model for going forward cooperation between the business community and state government. Within the business community, you've got folks like Dave, Brian the other night, countless individuals who have literally generations of institutional knowledge behind them and their approach to solving problems. Understand that folks and organizations like Brewed and Baccaro have been open for years. They've managed to accomplish what so few do, which is to open successful businesses, generating the highest quality products, and being able to do it consistently over, in some cases, generations. There's skill, there's expertise, there's confidence, there's guidance there. It's time for all of that work together. So I've spoken enough. Let me turn it back over to Dave. Dave, kind of give us, if you will, the snapshot of what the plan is and where we stand.
Yeah, the original plan that I sent out for the bill is to get people off unemployment through an incentive program that the state of Rhode Island would give $150 a week to a worker that goes back to work. If that employee stayed and maintained his job for at least 13 weeks, the state of Rhode Island would throw in an additional equivalent $150 for that week, which would be another check for $19.50. Essentially, what that did is that competed against the number that the federal government was throwing at people of $300 a week to stay home. So we're saying, hey, go back to Cello's, become an employee, go back to Brewed, become an employee. We're going to pay you whatever wage based on skill set, job, performance. But the state of Rhode Island would kick back in another $300 equivalent if you were to maintain that job. So it ends up being an incentive to get somebody off of unemployment to go create a job and be a job creation bill. At the same point, it's more of an incentive because you got to make more money than if you stayed at home, even with the subsidy from the federal government that we got to compete with. So it's a two-way street. We take people off unemployment, which financially helps the state. Two, we put people back to work so that businesses like mine and others can be staffed, create more sales tax generated, more labor tax being paid back to the state, and on so that we can survive. So we did create a bill. We put it together last Friday. It was submitted or handed to Senator Frank Lombardi. He became the first sponsor. Barbara Ann Fenton Fung became the second sponsor. Joe Shikachi has committed for it to be heard. It now was submitted yesterday at the State House, taken on the floor, introduced as a bill. It's written up. We have an actual bill now. Today we should have a bill number. So it's moving forward. And all that fast-tracked in just a couple days. Today, a little more progress. I just had a great meeting with Stefan Pryor from the Commerce Department, the Secretary of the Commerce Department, and the Director of DLT, Matt Weldon, about this bill and how we make it move forward. There was some discussions of other stuff that they're talking about doing and that's been in the works. I truly think that this bill is the type of bill that actually creates a job and gets people off of unemployment, doesn't keep people holding on to unemployment as a carrot. So I really think this is the right bill to go with. What was expressed was that with the bill that I wrote, that the way unemployment funds are used now to pay someone under unemployment, you can't technically use those funds to pay someone under this particular bill. So we have to find a funding source in order to make this happen. The main funding source, and this was even brought up by a few other people that I'm sure everybody knows, that you can use some of the stimulus money that's coming in or some of the stimulus money that's still left over that has not been used in the state. Quick little number thing to talk about. With the restaurants that we have here in Rhode Island, there's roughly some 2,900. Everybody can at least grab a couple. I could hire 30 people full-time tomorrow if you brought them, and I get dozens of other restaurants that are in either the dozens, 20 or 30 people also. But if we just look at the 2,900 and everybody brings in a few workers, we probably within a couple weeks will bring 10,000 people off unemployment just in the hospitality sector, and maybe even greater than that. So if we take that number, you're looking at that we have to find somewhere around $35 or $38 million to fund that for the state of Rhode Island to pay everybody $300 to get back to work. So it's a big number, but it's a small number when you look at not having these people go back to work in these restaurants, not generating revenue. Now, if we put these 10,000 so employees back to work, they're going to generate somewhere around $4.6 million at minimum in weekly labor, and probably somewhere to the tune of $59 million in combined 13 weeks of labor working for all the businesses I mentioned, restaurants, hospitalities, hotels, whether it be Ballards out on Block Island or a restaurant in Newport all the way to a Dunkin' Donuts or a Brewed Awakenings. By putting these people back to work, they're going to also generate about $6.8 million in taxes. Those would be taxes associated just with labor alone, and that's a minimum. That's based on the lowest number it possibly could be if these people were full-time, back to the state of Rhode Island. So the state of Rhode Island invests $35 million out of funds through PPP or one of these other programs that we receive money from to go back to trying to generate people to get in. The businesses generate the $59 million at minimum in labor. The state gets a $6.8 million at minimum just in labor-related taxes that would be associated with every dollar that gets paid out for employment. On top of that, you're going to generate sales tax, both 7% for the state, 1% for the towns, based on additional production of whatever these restaurants, bars, hotels generate. In addition to that, you got other taxes, that the businesses would pay on the profits they make, and moving forward. So all the way around, it's a positive move, and this bill, if we get it passed the way it's written now with some of these changes, is a job creation bill. It gets people off of the unemployment rolls. Then when you look at weeks 14 further, you end up saving about $1.6 million a week off of unemployment being paid out if you put 5,800 workers back in, or a little over 3.5 million, 3.2 million if you get 10,000 people back to work. Now, my bill doesn't only apply for people that are in the hotel or restaurant hospitality. It applies to anybody, any business that wants to employ somebody off of unemployment. So I did reach back out after my great meeting with Stefan Pryor and Matt Weldon from DLT to Senator Frank Lombardi. I told him where we stood, and he said any changes that we need to put on the bill, he will make sure they get implemented right away so we can fast track this. And when I say fast track, we put this bill out last Friday. It's now, Wednesday? We're middle of Wednesday. Yesterday was already, put in. It's a part of legislation. They're assigning a bill number today. The goal is to try to have this done by the end of the month so that this can be enacted for the beginning of next month, bringing us through the first 13 weeks going into the summer, and then the second part of the bill would merit. It would give us the next 13 weeks, bringing us all the way to October. So these restaurants, hotels, and hospitality associated places can find and get the employees that they desperately need. And that's the status.
Excellent. Legislation like this is so very important, both to the financial health of the state as well as the individual business owners. Dave waxed poetic, if you will, on the variety of taxes that will be collected. But we also need to focus on the local business economy and the impact that bringing people back to work will have. And it seems obvious. But in economics, they talk about something called the multiplier effect. And what that means simply is that if a gentleman is working here at Brewed Awakenings, takes a paycheck home, by and large, most of that's going to be spent locally. It's going to be spent at the local market, Dave's Market. It's going to be spent at the local service center, gas station. It's going to be spent on local contractors, perhaps someone to work on the lawn, perhaps someone to add that new kitchen. That money then is spent, again, on a local contractor will buy from local suppliers. And that money then is spent on their employees. And it begins this sort of economic circle of life that is, in a sense, the life force, the life source, if you will, of an economy. It's how we keep other Rhode Islanders employed. Fairly or unfairly, this state, the sun sets and rises on the tourism economy. Whether it be staycations and local folks coming to Brewed for their afternoon or morning coffee on the way into work, or someone locally visiting because they wanted to go out to western Rhode Island and go hunting and fishing, or Burrowville, or maybe they went down to the beach and caught a Brewed or another Rhode Island business down there. That money then is brought in from other economies, the New York economy, the Connecticut economy, and sourced to local Rhode Islanders, who's then, again, just through their daily purchases, reinvested in Rhode Island businesses. One of the reasons why it's not only important to buy local, but figure out mechanisms like this program to keep local thriving. Again, this is our circle of life here. Rhode Islanders, we're a hardy breed. And over the years, despite ups and downs, we are one of the finest places in America to visit. And people from around the country and around the world, like Providence and Newport, and all the other towns in Rhode Island, they're destinations. That'll be particularly important this summer because so many folks are not ready to take the jump to go on a cruise yet. They're not ready to go overseas or may not be able to go overseas. So there's a lot of Americans who are going to be looking to vacation here in the United States. We need to make sure that the doors are open, ready, trained, the tables are polished, our fine taverns are ready to receive. So this plan, to me, your host, Pat Ford, is a unique get-together, a confluence, a meeting of the minds of both business community and the state, seeking to solve, if you will, a common problem. And I predict that this can be wildly successful as long as we make that next step. Dave, last thought, we're going to do a quick pan of the restaurant. This is all sorts of Rhode Islanders enjoying lunch. It's a beautiful surrounding. I've been to the War facility a number of times. I've been here. Again, I'm going to promote every Rhode Island business as if it's my own, because the lifetime of investment Dave and his family and the entire employee base of Brewed Awakenings has put into the building this business is critical to the success of Rhode Island. When I first met Dave on the air, one of the first things I asked him was how many high school kids or young people or college kids have been employed here during the lifetime of Brewed Awakenings. Thousands. Absolutely thousands. So on that note, take a little time today, wherever that local haunt of yours, whatever that local spot, whatever that local place, take a moment, visit it, spend a little time, invest in your community, and then reach out to your legislators and say that you support the legislation. Dave, what are you calling the legislation? I call it the Get Back Rhode Islanders Back to Work Act. But
yeah,
what
so
do you?
Rhode Island Back to Work Incentive Bill is the name of the bill. We should have a number today.
Right. And the sponsors right now are?
Senator Frank Lombardi and Barbara Ian Fung on the House side are the two sponsors.
Excellent. So reach out to them right now, and as particularly, take a moment to reach out to your state legislator. We need to fast track this. Yep. We need to get Rhode Island open and ready for business for the summer. We are the Coalition, loud and proud and happy to be here at Brewed Awakenings at 1395 Atwood Avenue in Johnston, Rhode Island. Signing off for now. We'll be back on the air tonight. Tina Peterson with her groundbreaking award-winning show, Ramp, Real Access Motivates Progress, talking about handicapped access and issues related to the physically challenged community around the world. At 8 o'clock, a brand new show. We went live with its pilot last week. It's called Chas Kalenda, Attorney at Law. He'll be spending about a half hour, 45 minutes going over common sense day-to-day issues in the law. And then we've got a special guest at 9 o'clock. We'll be promoting that shortly. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon. Have a great afternoon.